They launched the invasion at sunrise. Humanity had been waiting all night. The ground shook before we even heard them. I was crouched in a reinforced trench 12 kilometers outside what used to be Leeds, England, when the first vibration rolled through the soil and up through my boots. My name is Mara Voss. I am 29 years old. I was a mechanic before this. Now I hold a rail-assisted pulse rifle I helped build, waiting for something to try to take my planet. The shaking was not from their landing. It was from 240,000 human soldiers shifting into final position across 16 kilometers. Coordinated movement that takes a lifetime to master. We did it in 11 months. That is how long the Keth gave us. Their signal arrived on every frequency simultaneously, translated by 3 AI systems in under 4 minutes. Your world has been selected for absorption. Resistance is unnecessary. You have approximately 340 days to prepare your population for transition. They thought they were being generous. They had no idea what they handed us. I remember that day. I was eating cold noodles in my flat watching news. Then every screen switched at once. Every phone, every billboard, every television. The same message in every language. For 40 seconds the entire planet was silent. Then it was not. I will not describe those first weeks. Fear, grief, denial, rage in layers everywhere. People said goodbye. People argued. People prayed. People ran. Then something happened the Keth never anticipated. We organized. Not slowly. Not reluctantly. Every government held an emergency summit within 72 hours. 48 hours later, every military alliance dissolved and became one unified command. Borders remained. People went home, cooked, argued about football. But when it came to preparation, there was one voice. It spoke without hesitation. Factories ran without stopping, not for profit, for survival. I was recruited in the first month. My mechanical background got me assigned to a forward installation team. I spent 10 months constructing this trench and 17 other interlocking defensive lines across the projected landing zones. The Keth signal told us exactly when they were coming. If you know when, you know where. If you know where, you prepare. To my left was Owen Garrett, a history teacher before the signal, now one of the most accurate marksmen in our unit. His face looked permanently calm. I learned that was not absence of fear but a decision not to show it. He was 41. His daughter had been evacuated to northern shelters 3 weeks ago. He kissed her forehead at a transport station and came back without a word. To my right sat 17-year-old Cal Briggs. He should not have been there. Recruitment age was 18, but Cal falsified his records. When discovered, his technical skill earned him a promotion instead of discharge. He spent 4 months modifying the rail feed systems on our heavy imp placements, increasing penetration efficiency by 31%. The colonel reviewed his work and said only that Cal better stay alive to explain his methods. The colonel was John Harlow, 63 years old, built like someone who never sat when she could stand. She fought on 3 continents before this. More scars than stories and many stories. She stood at the trench edge now, arms folded behind her back, watching the sky like waiting for a bus. The horizon behind her glowed, not sunrise. Sunrise was 40 minutes away. This glow was cold at its edges, shifting, belonging to no natural process on this planet. Re-entry heat of several hundred dropships burning through our atmosphere in tight formation. I pressed against the trench wall and checked my rifle for the 11th time. "You've checked it 11 times, Owen said. "I know. It'll work the same on the 12th. "I know that too." He almost smiled, not quite. Cal ran quiet calculations on a handheld device. He had been doing this for 2 hours. I stopped asking what he was calculating because the answers were always deeply technical and made me feel like the 17-year-old. The glow grew brighter. I thought about the Keth message again. That precise academic tone. The word that stuck was unnecessary, not impossible, not futile. Unnecessary. As though we would simply choose not to bother. As though a rational species would weigh options and surrender without a fuss. They had absorbed 47 civilizations. The fastest any resisted was 11 days. The Keth built their strategy around the assumption that intelligent life prioritizes self-preservation over resistance. They never met a species that defines self-preservation differently. Here is what they could not understand. We do not deal well with being told what to do. When you tell a human that resistance is unnecessary, something old and unreasonable and impossible to logic away decides that resistance is the only acceptable response. We are not brave because we are fearless. Everyone in that trench was afraid. Owen's hands were very still, meaning he worked hard to keep them that way. Cal had stopped his calculations and sat quietly, unusual enough to mean something. I had checked my rifle 12 times. We were afraid. We were ready. In 11 months, we made sure those two things were not contradictions. The dropships broke through the cloud layer. Perfect formation. Geometric, almost ceremonial. Exactly 312 in the first wave. We estimated 300. Cal said 310. We were both wrong. Colonel Harlow did not move. She watched them descend with the expression she used for supply manifests. Focused. Unhurried. Then she looked down the trench line, met every soldier's eyes she could, and spoke in a voice that carried exactly as far as needed. Hold, we hold until they're down. The ships descended. The ground shook harder. I heard 312 engines adjusting for landing. The sound was enormous and strange, unlike anything human machinery made. But the thing I remember most was the silence from our side. Not one voice. Not one premature shot. Not one person breaking position. 312 ships came down expecting panic. They found stillness. The stillness was more frightening than any noise could have been. I pressed my rifle against my shoulder. 40 meters ahead, the first Keth dropship touched Earth's soil. I breathed in. I breathed out. Then Colonel Harlow said the word we waited 11 months to hear. Now, the Keth disembarkation lasted 14 seconds. Cal had timed their previous maneuvers from intercepted footage. They were efficient. Ramps extended. Formations moved. Within 14 seconds of touchdown, approximately 9,000 Keth ground units stood on English soil. They were taller than I expected. Lean, angular. Elongated limbs with a forward-leaning posture, permanently mid-stride. Their armor was deep shifting blue-gray that changed with the light. Their weapons were long and elegant, making ours look industrial. They looked exactly like a species that had done this 47 times and never lost. They scanned the landscape. Empty fields, quiet road, still trench lines. Their commanders signaled to one another. The recording later showed the signal roughly translated, minimal organized resistance, proceed to advance. That was their last error. Owen fired first. His rifle was the longest range in our section. His shot struck the forward sensor array of the lead command unit from 800 meters. Not enough to stop it, enough to confuse it, enough to tell the other Keth units the shot came from an unexpected direction at an unaccounted range. Then the trench line opened up. Not just ours. Every trench, every concealed battery, every roof-mounted platform, every underground imp placement Cal spent 4 months adjusting to hit angles their shield geometry was never designed to handle. The Keth shields were remarkable, designed to absorb and deflect directed energy and high-velocity projectiles from standard attack vectors, straight lines, predictable arcs. What they were not designed for was the specific 43-degree lateral approach angle Cal worked out mathematically and quietly integrated into every imp placement in our sector. The first volley went through their front line shields like they were not there. Keth armor cracked. Units went down. The perfect geometric formation broke into something irregular and confused. I felt something rise in my chest, not quite satisfaction and not quite grief, but very much both at once. They returned fire immediately. They were good. They did not freeze, did not hesitate. Within 3 seconds they identified firing vectors and returned fire with precision. The trench walls took the brunt. Reinforced composites our engineering team spent 5 months layering specifically for this exchange. The walls held. Someone shouted a hit, a graze, a close impact. The line did not break. Cal was already at the rail feed controls for our heavy imp placement. His hands moved quickly without panic. The imp placement hummed, adjusted, fired a single shot at a Keth dropship that had lifted slightly to reposition. The shot caught the undercarriage where hull plating met landing strut assembly. The ship came down hard on its side. Not burning, just broken, blocking 6 units behind it. Owen looked at Cal. Cal shrugged. The math was straightforward. The Keth commanders attempted tactical reorganization. We anticipated this. Colonel Harlow drilled 4 separate Keth reorganization patterns into us over 6 months based on behavioral analysis of their previous campaigns. The moment their formation shifted into Pattern 2, she called it over comms. Pattern 2, East Flank 30 seconds. The East Flank adjusted. When the Keth completed reorganization and pushed forward, they pushed into a trap set before they landed. What I remember most is not the sound. The sound was extraordinary, a constant layered roar of our weapons firing, theirs returning, ships adjusting, ground units moving. But underneath was a rhythm. Human coordination has a rhythm when working right. Call and response, action and support, advance and cover. 11 months of drilling put that rhythm into us so deeply it operated without thought. The Keth were precise. Precision is not the same as rhythm. We had 37 minutes of continuous engagement before their first wave commander issued withdrawal. Dropships lifted off from the northern landing zone first, then central, then southern. They pulled back in orderly pattern. Still disciplined, still professional, but they pulled back. Our line did not pursue. Colonel Harlow was clear. No one crosses the forward marker. Pursuit invites untrained conditions. We were not here to chase. We were here to hold. The last Keth ship cleared visual range 6 minutes after withdrawal began. Then it was quiet, not the waiting quiet from before. The quiet of something that just happened and has not yet been understood. Owen set his rifle down and looked at his hands. Then he looked at me. They ran, not triumphant, checking a fact. They ran, I agreed. Cal compiled data from every sensor grid. We hit 78% shield bypass. The angle worked consistently across all imp placement types, not just ours, the full sector, not a lucky calculation, a correct one. Colonel Harlow came into the trench for the first time since engagement began. She looked at our unit one face at a time, taking stock, checking conditions. Then she looked at the sky where the Keth ships had been. Good work. Reload and rest what you can. Someone said, we beat them. Harlow turned without heat. We beat one probe wave they launched to measure us. They now know we do not break immediately. They now know we prepared. She paused. The real fleet has not moved. It sits in orbit with approximately 60% of their ground force capacity still aboard. No one spoke. We gave them information today, she said. What they do not know is how much capacity we used and how much we have left. They will study this data for several hours. Then they will come back with something larger and adjusted. How long do we have? Owen asked. She considered. Enough. I looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, beyond clouds and atmosphere, a fleet that ended 47 civilizations sat in orbit above my planet, reassessing. And somewhere on the dark side of the moon, something we built quietly and quickly with desperate ingenuity sat in the dark, waiting. They thought they had the plan. They had never been more wrong. The lull lasted 4 hours and 20 minutes. I spent most of it checking the time. Not impatience. Restless, unresolvable energy with nowhere to go. My hands still remembered the weight of the rifle, the vibration of trench wall when imp placements fired. My body had not received the message that danger had paused. Owen fell asleep sitting up. Remarkable and very Owen. Cal still worked, though slowed. He cross-referenced engagement data against something on his device with focused quietness, having found something interesting but not yet sure what to do with it. I thought about my brother, Nathan Voss, 7 years older, the kind who remembered birthdays and fixed things before you knew they were broken. He lived in Hanover when the Keth ran their orbital bombardment test 6 months ago. A demonstration, proof of intent. They hit a target the size of a city block with precision, selecting a location their analysis showed as low critical infrastructure. What their analysis missed was population density at midday, 216,000 people. The Keth called it a calibration exercise. That exact word. Nate was at a market 3 blocks inside the impact zone. I last spoke to him 2 days before. He was annoyed about a parking fine. We argued about something unimportant. The way you argue when you expect to speak again shortly. I did not cry because I had done my crying the first week, in a supply depot, sitting on a crate alone. What I had now was not quite grief anymore. It was fuel that did not burn loudly. It ran clean and steady for 6 months and never ran low. The comms crackled, Colonel Harlow's voice steady as always. All units, Orbital Command has a transmission in 4 minutes, mandatory listening. People straightened. Cal saved his work. Owen opened his eyes without looking like he had been asleep. The transmission came at exactly 4 minutes. A calm mid-range voice belonging to Orbital Coordination Director Grant Ellison. He gave information without alarming you, a specific skill. Ground units, Orbital Command. The Keth main fleet remains in high orbit stationary. We track repositioning in their secondary carrier group, consistent with second engagement preparation. Projection is 6 to 9 hours. A pause. I want to share something because you earned the right to hear it. Another pause. 47 civilizations encountered the Keth before us. 47 did not survive the first week. We are past first engagement. We held. Every front held. Not one breach. Not one abandoned position. The Keth probe withdrew with significant losses without achieving any mapped objective. The silence changed quality. You will have questions about what comes next. Some I cannot answer over open channel. What I can tell you is that more is in place than you currently know. You did your part. Trust that the rest was done with the same care. The transmission ended. Owen repeated, "There is more in place than you currently know." Slow tone of someone who just noticed something. "He said it clearly enough," I said. "He said it so clearly it was not an accident," Owen said. "He wanted us to hear it." Cal looked up. I ran numbers on our remaining imp capacity. After this engagement, we are at about 62%. We used less than we showed. He looked at both of us. Whatever the Keth recorded about our capabilities, they underestimated what we have left. I thought about that, about Ellison's phrasing, about Harlow's comment, about 1,000 small pieces sitting in my mind for months. Something clicked. The defense installations, the imp placements, the trench networks, the supply chains that never ran low, all presented as the plan, the full picture of what humanity built in 11 months. But 11 months is a very long time when every factory runs, and not all factories produce things for the ground. "Do you remember?" I said slowly. 8 months ago when coastal assembly yards were put under communications blackout for 30 days. They said it was a security measure for ground installations. I remember. The coastal assembly yards are not near any ground installation. A slow quiet settled over us. Cal set down his device. He looked at the sky with an expression I had not seen on him before, not calculation, something closer to wonder. "They were building something else," he said. "They were building something else," I agreed. 3 hours later, Harlow gathered our unit and 6 others into the command shelter, sealed it, and pulled up a map I had never seen. Not Earth. Near-orbital space. 41 ships, she said. Built in 8 months on the dark side of the moon inside the detection shadow of our own satellite. Crewed by people training in simulated zero gravity since month 2. Fully armed. Fully fueled. Fully crewed. In position and holding. Nobody moved. The Keth fleet watched Earth. They did not watch the moon. They did not consider the moon relevant. No civilization they encountered had the manufacturing capacity to build a combat space fleet in 8 months while running full planetary defense mobilization. She looked around. We did. I thought about Nate. Calibration exercises. 47 civilizations that did not make week 2. The plan. When the Keth reposition for their second wave, when they commit main force to descent trajectory, the lunar fleet jumps from cover and takes position behind them, above them, between them, and exit vector. Simultaneously, every ground-to-orbit battery we kept off their detection grid activates. They will be committed to descent. No retreat. Fire from below and above. From a force they did not know existed. Using weapons they have no data on. She turned back. They gave us 11 months because they never needed more than 11 days. They thought they were generous. Outside, the sky was dark with stars. On the moon's dark side, 41 ships waited in perfect silence, crewed by humans who learned to fly in 8 months, armed with weapons built in weeks, burning with the same clean fuel burning in me. The Keth did not know we were angry. They were about to find out. The alarm was not loud. A single sustained tone, low, resonant, the kind of frequency that travels through ground and air and bone. The Keth were repositioning for second wave. I was back in the trench under 40 seconds, Owen at his position, Cal at imp controls with his device in one hand and targeting interface in the other. Harlow at the trench edge, arms folded, watching the sky. Ellison's voice came through, still calm, all units. The Keth main fleet has broken orbit and is beginning descent formation. This is not a probe, this is full engagement. Estimated atmosphere entry in 18 minutes. Lunar fleet is go. They are moving now. Something changed in his voice. Not much, just enough. Godspeed, everyone. 18 minutes. At 15 minutes, the first Keth ships hit upper atmosphere. The sky began to burn. They came in a wall formation. Flat, wide descent arc to blanket maximum surface area, making targeting and coordination difficult for a defending force. Correct strategy against limited coverage. We were not limited. 6,000 imp placements opened fire at once, targeting specific points in a descending fleet using angle calculations refined over 11 months. The sky lit not with chaos, but with the precision of a plan every person on Earth built toward for nearly a year. The Keth returned fire immediately and heavily. They had our positional data from the probe and adjusted. First wave of return fire was significantly more accurate. The trench walls absorbed most. Not all. Someone down the line went down. I did not look, could not look. Owen fired at a rate I had not seen him maintain. Measured. Rhythmic. Each shot placed carefully. Cal ran the imp placement at a tempo that should not be possible without a full crew. The Keth front line hit the ground 4 kilometers ahead. They came out fast. No pause, no formation inspection, straight into advance. They studied probe data. They knew where our forward positions were. What they did not know was that we had moved them. In the 4-hour lull, ground teams quietly shifted forward imp placements 40 meters in 3 sectors. Not enough for orbital scans to register. Far enough that the approach vectors their units were programmed to avoid were no longer where our weapons were. Cal suggested it. Harlow approved in under 2 minutes. The Keth advance units moved confidently down their planned corridor. The corridor was empty. Our weapons were 40 meters to the side with clean lines of fire. We opened up. What followed was 22 minutes of the most intense engagement I have ever experienced. No clean way to describe combat at that scale. Owen kept firing. Cal took a graze on his left forearm around 12 minutes, looked at it for 2 seconds, wrapped it with his right hand without putting down the interface, and continued. Harlow moved along the trench line the entire 22 minutes, adjusting, directing, calling corrections with steady efficiency. I fired until my rifle threw a heat warning light, switched to backup, kept firing. At 22 minutes, the sky changed. Ellison's voice, stripped of careful calm for the first time. Lunar fleet has engaged. Keth main carrier group is taking fire from above. The trap is closed. I looked up through smoke and chaos. Points of light in upper atmosphere that were not stars. Ships burning, not falling, moving, maneuvering, lit from outside by weapons fire. The Keth main fleet was caught between ground batteries firing upward and lunar fleet firing down from above and behind. They committed their entire force to descent. No rear guard. No reserve. Planned for a target that was braking and running. When they committed completely. The lunar fleet jumped from moon shadow at the moment the Keth were fully committed. No warning. No time to respond. One moment the Keth rear was clear. The next, 41 human ships were there already firing. Not elegant, not geometric perfection. Built in 8 months by a species that never built a space warship before. Functional, angular, carrying more firepower than their size should allow. Crewed by people who trained in simulators and now did the real thing for the first time. They fought like they had nothing to lose. because they grew up on a planet burning below them, and they were not going to watch it fall. The Keth ground advance faltered when orbital comms broke down. Their ground and orbital coordination had been tightly integrated. When the fleet took fire from an unexpected direction, ground commanders lost tactical overlays telling them where to push and hold. The advance became uneven, then confused. Colonel Harlow saw it first. Forward advance on my command, hold formation, maintain cohesion, 300 meters at measured pace. We went over the top. 300 meters measured pace as drilled, not a charge, a walk, a deliberate, coordinated walk keeping our lines intact and coverage overlapping. The Keth units received contradictory signals from their fleet, losing positional data, unable to synchronize. They fell back, regrouped, fell back again. Owen walked forward through the dark, rifle up, absolutely steady. Cal, bandaged arm and all, kept pace with his weapon on target, focused, executing steps. The Keth ground units began full withdrawal at 38 minutes. Not orderly retreat, collapse. Without orbital support or coordination, facing advancing ground forces, they fell back to landing zones. Their landing zones were no longer safe. The lunar fleet redirected fire to take out command-class dropships attempting liftoff. Without command ships, transport vessels operated on local protocols only. No strategic direction. The sky was a battlefield. We were winning. A Keth carrier the size of a large stadium broke apart in high atmosphere. Every structural point gave at once. The light was extraordinary. For a moment, the entire landscape lit as bright as noon. Owen stopped walking. He looked up at that light for 5 seconds. Then he looked forward and kept moving. At 44 minutes, the first Keth surrender signal came through. A ground unit 3 sectors east raised a signal identified as a request to cease engagement. Then another. Then 6 more. In 4 minutes, the orbital fleet scattered rather than surrendered. 7 ships broke away at full thrust into deep space. To be tracked. Some pursued. A matter for later. Ellison's voice came back. Different, not louder. Quieter in the way a voice goes quiet when carrying something very large. All units. The Keth main fleet is in full disengagement. Ground forces are surrendering across all sectors. The engagement is concluded. The trench line went still. Owen said quietly, "That's that then." Cal sat down in the middle of the field we just crossed, looked up at the fading light from broken ships and said nothing. I stood between them and felt everything at once. Loss and relief and grief and strange, impossible pride of being part of something that should not have worked and did. I thought about Nate, about calibration. The light faded. Stars came back through clearing smoke. We were still here. 3 weeks later, I stood in a field outside the rebuilt Forward Coordination Center near Leeds. English autumn. Overcast. Cold. Occasionally wet. Indifferent to historic events. I had a cup of tea in both hands. No particular reason to be in a field except open spaces helped me think. 11 weeks ago, I was a mechanic. 7 weeks ago, I helped build a trench. 3 weeks ago, I walked 300 meters across a battlefield at measured pace, while the sky burned with remnants of a fleet that ended 47 civilizations. Now I drank tea and tried to work out how I felt. I did not yet know. The losses first. Our sector came through better than many. Across all fronts, the numbers were real and significant. Every number a person. Every person a name and history and someone who would carry a specific absence. Winning did not make those numbers smaller. Nate was not there to see it. I talked to him in my head, told him about Cal's arm, Owen's 5 seconds, the walk across the field. He would have had something brief and dry to say. Grant Ellison found me in the field. He was shorter than his voice suggested. He stood next to me without announcing his presence, looked at the sky the way people had started doing since the battle. Not fear, awareness. Remembering it was not an empty ceiling. "You were at Leeds front," he said. Not a question, he reviewed records. "Yes, the 40-meter lateral shift was from your unit." Cal Briggs, the 17-year-old. Ellison nodded. He turned down a research position, said he wanted to finish his exams. I laughed, first real laugh in 3 weeks, felt odd in my throat. "There is something I need to tell you. You will be asked to speak for your unit in 2 days. You should know the full context. 3 days ago, we received a contact signal from a civilization called the Vaughn, 400 light-years away. Not Keth, aware of Keth expansion for 3 centuries. Watching, documenting, not intervening. Why not? Because until 3 weeks ago, no civilization ever successfully resisted the Keth past first engagement. Consensus among observing species was that intervention wasted resources. The Keth won every time. The only variable was how long. He paused. They watched our entire engagement, the Vaughn and 3 other species. Observation platforms in our system without our knowledge. First probe, lull. Second engagement, lunar fleet deployment, all of it. 4 alien species, quietly watching from shadows, expecting to document another absorption. They want to speak with us. Their message included a translation of the record of the absorbed, history of every civilization the Keth took. 47 entries. He handed me a folded sheet. Fastest fall was 6 days. Most organized resistance lasted 22 days. Most advanced technologically lasted 9 days. 47 names, all same outcome, all until now. They want to meet the species that did something no other civilization in 4 centuries managed. I folded the sheet. What do we want? That is what you will be asked to speak to. 2 days later, in a facility still smelling of construction materials, I stood before a camera transmitting to a relay station that would reach a civilization 400 light-years away. 6 of us from combat units. Owen, calm as ever. Cal with arm in a medical brace wearing a borrowed jacket slightly too large. 3 others from different fronts. Ellison asked me to speak first. I thought about Owen's advice to say what I actually thought, Cal's advice to keep it short. Then I said this. My name is Mara Voss, 29 years old, born in Frankfurt. Before a species from outside our solar system told us we were going to be absorbed, I repaired mechanical systems for a living. I am one of 9 billion people on Earth. We were told we had 340 days. We used all of them. We lost people, more than I can say in a short transmission and more than I have finished grieving. What we did not lose was the decision to defend what is ours. You watched our engagement, you watched others. The outcome surprised you. It surprised some of us too. We are not always peaceful. We argue. We fail to look after one another. We have done things we are not proud of. These things are true. But when something from outside tells us we do not have the right to exist on our own terms, we agree with one another much better than we assumed. You asked to meet us. We would like to meet you. We would like to hear about the 47 civilizations in your record, to understand what they built and who they were before the Keth came. That record should be larger than it is. We are not interested in being observed from a distance. We are not looking for approval. We are interested in honest conversation between species who share the same sky. We are interested in knowing what else is out there because we won, we are still standing, and we are already looking up. I stopped. The room was quiet. Ellison nodded. Transmission sent. Adele West said quietly, "That was good." Owen told me to say what I actually thought. "That's what you actually thought?" Cal asked. "That's what I actually thought." Cal nodded. "Good." 3 hours later, Ellison received the Vaughn's reply. He read it in his steady voice. "We have watched your species for 41 years. Our prediction models gave you 17% chance of surviving the first probe and 2% chance of surviving the second wave. We revised after the first probe. We have been revising since. We accept your terms. We look forward to honest conversation." He set down the paper. "They also said something else." "What?" Owen asked. "Do not attempt absorption of the 3rd planet in Sol system. Reason, they were prepared. They used every day. They did not run, and they are still looking outward." I thought about Nate. 11 months in a trench. A 17-year-old with a bandaged arm who wanted to finish his exams. Owen firing steadily in the dark. John Harlow standing at the trench edge, watching a sky about to change. 47 civilizations no one had added to in 3 centuries. We were the first written about differently, not as an absorbed entry, not as a duration and collapse, as something the Keth had not encountered, as something the watching species had not predicted. That evening I walked back to the field. Clouds cleared, sky full of stars, more than usual because the city was still being rebuilt and lights were lower. The stars looked exactly as they always had, distant, cold, ancient, indifferent, but not empty anymore. Not to me. I finished my tea. The stars did not move. They never do, not on a human time scale.